This review was filmed during the 2023 WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes. Without the labor of the writers and actors currently on strike, the works being covered here wouldn't exist. I fully support both the WGA and SAG-AFTRA in their fight for fair treatment and compensation against a system that continually denies them such. While a full boycott has not been called for, SAG-AFTRA has asked that everyone who does media about film and TV refrain from promoting struck content during this time. From what I can tell based on guidelines released, independent reviews do not constitute promotion of work, but as critical assessment of a work of art. Any praise I give to these works should be seen purely as praise for the artists, writers, and actors who created it. If anything, the praise is emphasizing that the writers, actors, and other artists deserve more compensation because they are who make these works possible. Additionally, this video was not made using any studio-provided screeners or materials. Do not support any studios during the strike. If you want to know more information, there are links down in the description for you to follow. War never changes, even in Star Trek. Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Minty Reviews, and we're here for the next episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, episode 8, Under the Cloak of War. This one is a rough one. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Not a bad rough. In a very, very good rough. This one is a rough watch because of what it's dealing. And I was a little upper and chipper at the beginning of this video, but this episode is not that. This is one of those Star Trek episodes. It's like, oh, we're gonna deal with some very heavy topics right now, and we're gonna deal with them in the most Star Trek way possible, in the best way possible. So let's just get right into this review. So non-spoilers first, then on to spoilers. So here we go for non-spoilers. This one's a war episode, but not specifically a war episode. We do get some war flashbacks, but this is a war episode dealing with the aftermath of war and dealing with the long-standing PTSD of war and the effects of war and what happens after war and how do you deal with it. And especially with the Enterprise crew, where you have 3 members of the Enterprise crew who were in the war, who were in the Klingon War, and them having to deal with it now. But more importantly, this is straight up a full-out Mbenga episode and a Chapel episode. And my god, do both of those actors, do Jesh Bush and Babs Olasmanku, I apologize, Babs. Not only do Babs and Jess knock it out of the park in this episode on so many ways, but they deliver such an emotional performance that honestly just dictates the rest of their character development, I'm pretty sure, for the rest of the series, however long it goes. This episode is such a masterclass on how to do an episode and how to tackle the material that they're dealing with in this episode as well, which is such a big overarching thing. And everyone else in the episode is great too. That was something in the episode great too, but just the emotional gravitas that Jess Bush and Babs are dealing with in this episode are just, it's like a black hole, but in a good way, where they just like pull everyone else in to make them all strong. It's so great. And like I said, this is a very emotional, very deep war episode, and it is one of the best things that Star Trek has ever done. Just straight up Star Trek as a franchise has ever done, and especially in this series. So that's basically all I can say for non-spoilers. So let's just get into spoilers. So yeah, spoilers here. So in 3, 2, 1, Jagal. Klingons, everything. So the whole point of this episode is that, or the whole plot of this episode starts off with the Enterprise being chosen to host a Klingon ambassador named Dakra, who was a general during the Battle of Jagal during the Klingon War, who defected and joined the Federation as like a peace offering thing to try and like bridge between the Federation and the Klingons to make peace. However, the issue with this is that there are 3 members of the Enterprise crew that we are very familiar with and that we love so much that were in the Klingon War. Ortegas was a pilot in the Klingon War. We don't get much from her, sadly, but we do get enough from her, which is like, she doesn't like this guy being here. She is not comfortable with him being here at all. And then we have Chapel and Ben. Those 2 are more important here because they were actually on the moon of Jagal in the medical triage area dealing with the war firsthand. And they were seeing what this guy, Dakra, was doing on Jagal, where he was attacking citizens. He was attacking just like civilian people. He was just sending his troops to kill everyone. And at this point, he basically defected from the Klingons. He joined the Federation, and he is known for his reputation as like the Butcher of Jagal because he killed his own crew. He supposedly killed his own crew because he didn't realize that they were attacking civilians. We learn about that later. We get this emotional resonance between Chapel and Mbenga and Ortegas where they're like, we do not want this guy here. We do not want him here. Like, we are having major PTSD right now for the fact that we fought in the Klingon War, and now we have to host a Klingon general that get the name the Butcher of Jagal, with two of our crew members having literally fought him in the Battle of Jagal. We don't like this, and it's kind of tearing the crew apart. And Pike has to kind of keep it together, be like, hey, we got to do this. It's just going to be for like technically 12 days. I think it's supposed to be how long? It's supposed to be 12 days. We're just taking him from point A to point B, and we just need to get him through there. And he's really not making it easy for them to like him either, because he's being like overly gracious. The Gra is. He's being overly gracious. He's being like overly nice. He's being like, oh yes, no, it's perfectly fine that I killed these people because I've repented. I've become good now. I'm a saint now, basically, as a kind of thing. And people are like, we don't like this dude. We don't like this. He's hyped. We don't like this at all. Don't like it. And it's intercut with flashbacks as well with Chapel and Mbenga on the planet, on like the moon of Jagal, and seeing the front lines, or like the medical front lines, and seeing what they've had to go through, seeing how many people of the Federation that were basically just blown apart in this war that they had to try and heal. Like, there's one part where they're doing surgery on a guy, and Chapel has to pump the dude's heart for him. Like, they show that. Now, they don't actually fully show Chapel grabbing the dude's heart, but her hand's in his chest and like pumping. So, you know, Chapel, like they've had to deal with some major shit. They had to deal with war. So it is no surprise that they are this overcome. It's also going on at the same time that Chapel and Spock are having the whole thing, and Spock's not exactly sure how to deal with this either, because, you know, he's Spock, and he's like, I'm trying the best I can, and I know you're dealing with a lot of stuff now, so let me do the best I can here, you know, while being Spock. And they're just going through a lot of time. And we don't get as much of Ortegas, unfortunately. That's the one critique of this episode I wish we got, and that's honestly one critique of Strange New World in general. Is like, I wish we get more of Ortegas. I wish we get more Melissa Navia as Ortegas, just doing anything. But we don't get enough. But there's like some definite scenes between her and Dakra where she's like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with you right now. I'm just leaving. And she does. She just straight leaves, like unceremoniously leaves during like a ceremonial dinner kind of thing. It's like, it's very disrespectful, but she's like, I can't do this. I can't deal with this guy, which is fair, completely fair. And just a lot of hardships. But yeah, we see flashbacks of Jagal and seeing what they're going with, and seeing what Chapel and Mbenga had to go through during war, to the point where like we actually get a call back to episode 1 with that like Star Trek jet drug stuff that they were taking, like the super soldier drug, and the fact that like there was a battalion on Jagal who's like, hey, we know you have it, like, can you give it to us so we can actually use it to go, you know, win this fight? And they're like, no, we're not giving you this stuff. Comes back, their whole battalion is basically blown apart, and they gotta heal him. Like, all right. And they find out from there that Dakra was attacking civilians, that he was just ordering his troops to attack civilians. And then it leads to the big ending part, because the whole time Dakra is trying to basically win over Mbenga, being like, hey, it's going to be a great thing if like the people see like us two getting along, being friendly with each other, because it's showing significance of like these two people who fought on both sides pairing back up again and fixing all their problems. And Mbenga's like, I don't want to do that, because clearly Mbenga knows something that he's not letting on, something very major, and Dakra clearly has either forgotten what's going on here, doesn't realize who Mbenga is, or something, which we'll get to in a little bit. But it is basically leading to that, and eventually Pike and Una have a conversation where Pike's like, hey, we need to get him off the ship. Or no, Una's like, we need to get him off the ship. Like, we need to get him off the ship now. Is there any way we can go faster to this place? And they do. They find like a shortcut kind of method to like go through this nebula or whatever. It's not that important. Like, it basically cuts the trip in like a quarter. So it cuts it down from like 12 days to like 2. So it's like, cool, we're doing that now. We're getting him off the ship because it is tearing the ship apart, and we need to keep our ship together. We need to keep our crew together. And it then finally leads to this confrontation that Mbenga and Dakra have in medical, where Dakra is basically just like telling him like, yeah, no, we should team up together. We should be like together. And Mbenga's like, you're lying to everyone. It's like you're lying to everyone. And trust me, I know you are because I was there. And you have this whole story built up and this whole reputation built up, this like dishonorable reputation with the Klingons of like you killing your own men because they were being dishonorable, and then you defected and you're like a saint to Starfleet and to the Federation, when that's not true. What's actually true is the fact that you were ordering them to murder civilians, and then I was the one who came in and killed all your men in front of you, and you got away from me. And Mbenga is actually the real Butcher of Jagal, because he's the one who snuck in and killed all of Dekraw's men, and Dekra got away. And either Dekra forgot about this, or he put it away, didn't realize it, or he didn't want to realize it or remember or anything. So then it leads to a full confrontation with the same dagger that Mbenga used to kill the rest of his men. And it's shot beautifully. And it's shot in a very beautiful way, where we get basically like Chapel walking in here. We also know about all of Chapel's PTSD from all this time as well, where we see her walk in with there being a confrontation and somebody reaching for the knife. And then it goes to a wider shot through the like the smoky glass of medical, where like you can't fully see what's going on, you can't see who's who, and then it just cuts to Dekra being stabbed with a knife and dying. We don't know who did it. It is left completely up to interpretation. There's like a sit down between Chapel, Una, and Pike for obvious reasons, because Chapel's the only witness to the whole thing that was a third party to the whole thing, and she basically says that it was a confrontation, it got out of hand, the knife accidentally went into him, but we scanned it all the blood on it goes back to the Butcher of Jagal, which at this time everyone still thinks is Dekra. It's left completely open-ended, and Pike even has a conversation with Mbenga's like, hey, did you kill him? And Mbenga doesn't necessarily say in direct terminology that he did or didn't, but he basically says, like, if it was me, I don't regret doing it, but I'm not going to say it was me. I'm just going to say that there are certain things that break people, and there's not much you can do to fix what's broken. And he uses this in a great way as the episode ends, of him doing like a personal log about one of the medical chairs, like one of the medical suites, where it's like, medical suite 2 is broken. I fixed it for now, but I feel like there are just some things that break that you can't fix. And the episode ends with like the screen like glitching out again, basically kind of signifying like something like the war broke him. The war broke him so badly and broke Chapel so badly that they're just stuff in them that just can never be fixed. And it's left open to interpretation, did Mbenga kill Dekra? And for me personally, there are 3 different ways it could have gone. And I'll say what my personal view of it is. Either 1, Mbenga killed Dekra, and he fulfilled his purpose being the Butcher of Jagal, and he took out that whole force that was murdering civilians on Jagal, and he basically, for him personally, ended the Klingon War finally within him. That's method 1, is that he actually did kill Dekra, and Chapel was covering for him, and it's war. It happened. 2, Dekra killed himself. Dekra, at the notion and at the idea now that he had been that the whole story was up, that his whole lie was up, and that it was going to be known now that he was a complete dishonorable Klingon, and he didn't kill his own men because of disrespect, and he was actually murdering civilians, which is something that the Klingons don't necessarily do at this point, if they weren't doing in the war. And it was just a dishonorable thing. The fact that it was all up and that his entire story was a lie and was about to be told to Starfleet and the Klingons, and that he would basically be wanted by both of them at this point, that he killed himself. And what is the better honorable way to do that in Klingon society than to just end yourself, then have a sacrificial suicide to yourself, and just basically be able to fulfill the destiny of like killing that which is the worst part of yourself kind of a thing. So that's number 2. Or the third option is that Chapel killed Dekra, and Chapel was fulfilling her role in Jagal, where she was sent there to help Mbenga. She was sent there as Mbenga's like lead nurse on the front lines, and that she wasn't able to help as much as she wanted to. She wasn't able to save everyone that she wanted to. She wasn't able to save Mbenga the way that she wanted to, and that the war took a toll on her, and that she had never been able to fully overcome it as well. So that now her killing Dekra was a way of like symbolically finishing the war as well. And that since she was technically the only other witness to the whole situation, she can just lie to the captain and to Una as well, and basically just say like, yeah, this is what happened, and they'll just have to believe her because there's no one else there that could say it, and there's no one else there that could be a witness. So those are basically the three things: either Mbenga killed him, Dekra killed himself, or Chapel did it. And any way works. Any way works, and they leave it very much open to interpretation. However, what they do is they lay the seeds even more as to why Mbenga isn't the chief medical officer in the original series, and why it's Bones instead. And we're probably going to see McCoy at some point. Probably going to see him. I honestly hope we don't see McCoy. I don't want to see that many of the original series cast, but it's cool that we keep doing it. But it is leading to as to why Mbenga isn't the chief medical officer on the original series. Probably because he's seen so much shit at this point, he has to step down. And if he actually did kill someone on the Enterprise, an actual ambassador, he's probably going to need to step down from being chief medical officer. But it's laying those seeds. It's laying the groundwork, laying those seeds of why, of explaining it. Just like how it does just like how they've been doing the whole season so far with Chapel and Spock, where it's like clearly they had a relationship at some point in the original series, and it's hinted at and mentioned, especially in the Naked Time, I think is what it's called. I just watched a podcast where they talked about that episode, where Chapel confesses her love to Spock again. So now that's laying that groundwork there too, the same way that it's now doing with Mbenga, with why he's not the chief medical officer. After seeing him on the Enterprise for this long, for these 2 seasons, of him being such a great chief medical officer, is like, well, why? What happened? Why is he not that in the original series? And it's probably because of this, and it's probably because of the other things he's going through in the season as well, and overall just dealing with the PTSD of the Klingon War. And this episode's great. This episode is phenomenal in every way, shape, and form possible. It is absolutely picture-perfect phenomenal in everything it's doing, where it's dealing with these heavy themes of war, heavy themes of PTSD, heavy themes of grief and despair and moving on, and how do you move on. And even from the other side as well, from Dekra, it's dealing with as well, like the lies you tell yourself and the lies you tell others to make yourself feel better about the actions you did in the war, and to make yourself seem better for what you did in the war. Because like war is war. Like it's something as well in like Avatar, where I've been watching Avatar as well, where you have Uncle Iroh, where Uncle Iroh is the Dragon of the West. He is like this military genius, this like superior military officer that was such an like oppressive force during his time being a general in the Fire Nation. And then once he stopped war, like he was so good at war, but once he got out of the war, once he basically retired from the war after his son died, he basically made amends for everything. He's like, no, I was just doing a job, and now I'm actually making amends, and I am trying to fulfill life to the fullest and trying to help as many people as possible, knowing how many people I personally hurt in the war. And it's such a great thing. And Dekra either was attempting to do that, or he was putting on a facade the whole time. More likely a facade the whole time, knowing what he did and lying about it. Whereas Iroh is like, no, I know what I did. I'm trying to make amends for it. Whereas Dekra wasn't. He was just trying to get the recognition for making amends without actually not like recognizing his role and everything. But beyond all that, this episode was phenomenal. Under the Cloak of War, phenomenal. It's a brutal episode. It is a hard-hitting episode. It is an emotional episode as well, and it is one of the best things they've done in this whole series. And it's really funny the fact that it's coming in between the Lower Decks crossover episode and the musical episode. Is that this is like sandwiched in between those two. It's like, wow, that's such a real emotional roller coaster there of what they're doing. But either way, that was this episode. It is absolutely phenomenal. One of the best things I have ever seen from Star Trek, just in general. And I've heard from Star Trek fans as well, who've actually watched like everything, who's like, yeah, this is one of the best things they've done. So let me know down in the comments as well what you think about this episode, and what do you think actually happened at the end there. What are your opinions on what happened there? Do you think Mbenga killed Dekra? Do you think Dekra killed himself? Or do you think Chapel did it? Or do you have your own opinion or your own thought about what happened there at the end that you also have been thinking and would like to share as well? Let me know that down in the comments as well. And if you like this review as well and you want to see more, leave a like. It helps out a lot with the channel, helps us get discovered more, and helps out with the algorithm for YouTube. If you want to see more as well, leave a subscription as well. It does help out a lot and truly mean a lot to me as well for the channel, and you'll be able to be notified of everything that I post going forward, all the reactions, all the reviews, and all the other things I do as well. And until next time, just keep being awesome. Right over here is going to be a playlist for another thing you can watch as well, and over here is going to be a video YouTube recommends for you as well. And until next time, just stay great, everyone. Stay great, overcome your mental demons, and I'll see you next one. Until then, peace, everyone. Peace.